All right, Rad Dads, and welcome back for another episode. I'm Rob.
And I'm Sal.
And tonight we have a special guest. Joining us tonight is Andy Murphy, also known as the Secure Dad. Andy is not only a Rad Dad, but also the founder of the Secure Dad, the author of 2 books, Home Defense and Password Security, also course creator of Unlocked, and a podcast and a YouTube host. Wow, you got a lot of things going on.
Yeah, man, I do. You said all that, and I'm like, wow, this Andy dude sounds pretty cool.
How do you find time for yourself?
Yeah, that's the thing. You guys running your podcast and all that. It just kind of becomes a part of your life. It's just a part of it now, and I enjoy it. I love doing what I do. I love talking to guys like you and being on your show, and just connecting with people and helping folks live safer, happier lives.
That's awesome. How many kids do you have?
I've got the one, and he is 9 years old. He is in the 4th grade, and he's 9, pushing 19. So I'm sure y'all know how that goes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I have 3 girls. I have 2 boys, and I'll tell you, between the 8 and I have an 8 and 11-year-old, and the 11-year-old's pushing 19. It's very interesting to watch, to say the least.
Sure. Yeah, and
for me it is especially.
Right. I don't know what it's like to raise a daughter, but with my kid, like we were playing ball in the backyard today, and it turned into a fight. We were just throwing the ball to each other. Then we're hitting each other with the ball, and the next thing you know, he's on my back, and the neighbors are wondering what's going on in the backyard over at the Murphy house. So yeah,
it's all good. Don't worry about it. We got it.
Yeah,
I'll tell you. I don't know what it's like to raise a girl either, but I'm gonna buy some popcorn and sit outside Sal's house and watch, because it's gonna be entertaining.
I'm sure it is.
Yes, he's referring to when my girls start dating.
Oh yeah, man. That's the big one. It's like, yeah, come on in, son. Sit on down. Tell me about yourself. Yep.
So how has becoming a father changed your life?
It's made it for the better. I don't. I've been a dad for 9 years. I try to think about, gosh, where was I 10 years ago? What was I thinking and what was I doing? And like, I can't remember. It's like your heart grows, your attention span grows, everything about you grows, and you mature as a person to become a dad. And it's fantastic. It's a blessing from God, and I absolutely love it.
It's funny you say that, because every so often my wife, she and I will get into some conversation and say, what did we do after we got married before we had kids?
Right.
It's like, what were we doing? Like, how did we occupy ourselves? But we can't remember. My oldest now is going to be 13 this weekend. So it's like you said, you just get deep into it.
Right.
And it's great.
It is
definitely a blessing from God.
Yeah, man. And you're like, didn't we travel before? Have we been to another country together? It's just these vague memories of doing things together. Yeah.
So what challenges have you faced raising your kid?
I think the biggest challenges, and I bet you guys will say this too, is yourself. It's like when you hear yourself repeat something that your dad said to you, whether good or bad, and that shocking moment of, man, I think I just turned into my father right here. And then you start to realize, oh, my parents were right about a lot of stuff, and I should call and apologize. I don't, but I should call and apologize for that. But yeah, it's working on yourself. It's working on how you communicate. What's really going to make you mad, and how you discipline your kid, how you love them, how you support them. I think the hardest part of parenting, honestly, for me, is just dealing with me and my attitude and making sure that I'm doing the best that I can as a father. And I fail. I fail on a regular basis. I'm like, man, I should have handled that better. But the next day is a new day, and you start over again. And if you need to, I'm one of these people that if I really truly mess up, I apologize to my son. I don't apologize for small things. I don't apologize for disciplining. But like, if I actually make a mistake, if I misunderstand something, I own up to that and I apologize for it, because I want him to do that as a man.
Sure, that's definitely important.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely important. Owning it and letting them understand, hey,
right.
I did make a mistake, and it's okay to admit when you're making a mistake and own it.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
So what have you learned from raising your kids? Have they taught you anything?
They've taught me that, it's funny. Like, I think the first time my kid sat down and wanted to play, I think, Paw Patrol characters with me, where you sit down, you do the fun voices and all that kind of stuff. And like, I used to do that as a kid, but I had forgotten, as an adult, you just become jaded. You think about all the stuff you got to do and how much coffee's in your system and things like that. And like, I had forgotten how to see life, from the point of view of a child, and how they see things, and what they do and how funny they are. And so it was really just kind of relearning how to look at life and seeing it from their point of view to help them through it. So yeah, just really taking a step back and looking how they're dealing with life and how they're doing pretty good at it.
Especially nowadays with technology.
Yeah, technology is a big deal. Like, my kid had a laptop assigned to him in the second grade, and I didn't get like my first home computer until like we were in like I was in high school, I'm like, and you're walking around with a nicer computer than I had for like the first 15 years of being an adult and a college student.
So true. That is so true. So Andy, your expertise and your background is security. Obviously, hence the name Secure Dad. So I'd like to talk about online security. I know that's huge with today's society and everyone having the computer and the internet at their fingertips. We have small computers that we carry around in our pockets. First and foremost, as being dads, how do we protect our kids?
Sure, that's a big question, man, and it's an ever-changing question because as technology changes, the answers can change. So I remember a couple of years ago, I was not really good with online security, not really at all. Like, I mean, I had password protected my Wi-Fi in my house, but like that was it. I didn't know really anything else. I didn't know about online predators all that much. So I made a commitment to myself and also to the Secure Dad as a company to get better at it. And so I started studying and learning and talking and having deep conversations with law enforcement folks, with tech experts, and with people who were in this arena. And I discovered that a lot of digital security is actually analog, meaning it doesn't come from the computer itself, it comes from the person. And where we as dads come in, we need to sit down and talk to our kids about what it is to be a digital citizen, because all of us here, we are older than the internet. We didn't grow up with it or anything like that. And so my son was doing, during COVID, he had his school laptop out, and somebody was talking to him, one of his teachers, about what it's like to be a digital citizen. And she said something very important, and she said, because everything you click on online is going to be tracked. And I thought how terrible that is, that everything they do online is going to be tracked. And it made me feel really bad because, like, when the three of us, when we got our first email addresses, I guess it was like an AOL account or something like that. We picked like the most random stuff, like Ninja Surfer at AOL or something like that, because we thought we could be private online. And our kids can't be private online these days. They have to be who they are at home, at school, at church, soccer practice, wherever, and that now includes online. It's being online now for a kid is nothing like we had when we were growing up. And so you got to teach your kids up front, what you say online is going to follow you throughout your life or throughout your school year, things like that, which you Google and all that sort of stuff. So you really have to level with your kids and say, this is just a different form of your life. This is just like going and being at a friend's house. You act at that friend's house like you have been raised. And so that's really the foundation for online security. It really has nothing to do with technology.
That is amazing. I've never had it explained to me. I've never heard that before, as you explained it. To have your child act online as they would at your friend's house, at grandma's house, or even in school. Well,
Yeah,
I don't know about school because their character may change in school.
Right. Yeah, right. But yeah, you gotta give them that foundation to understand what's acceptable behavior and what's not.
So, and then, like, how do we protect ourselves?
Sure. Like, how we protect ourselves is, you guys are familiar with Reddit. Are you guys on Reddit at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was on Reddit for like 3 days. And I was like, this is too much for me. I love Instagram, Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And so I decided I was going to get on Reddit. And so I chose a name, and you know how it gives you suggestions for here's other people that kind of have that name in your username sort of thing. And the first guy I clicked on to see if he was interested in the same stuff that I was, and he had nothing but school shooter videos on his profile. And I was like,
Wow.
and not like prevention, not like I talk about trying to prevent school shootings. I'm talking like this guy, that was his thing, like in a very creepy way. And I was like, well, okay,
That's
this is
crazy.
not cool. So then I clicked on somebody else, and it was somebody who was selling like we'll call it romantic experiences with them through OnlyFans. And I'm like, okay. And it just kind of went downhill from there. And so I said, this is not a place for me. This is not where I need to be. So there is this I had he goes by Texas Spy Dad, and I didn't think about telling the story here. But I forget his real name at the moment. He's going to shoot me. Sorry. But he used to be a spy, and he's a father, and he said he had the rule of the stupids with his kid, which is don't do stupid things at stupid times of the day with stupid people, meaning set yourself up for success. And I think we as adults kind of have to do that online as well. If we finding that school shooter guy the first profile I click on Reddit, I'm like, dude, this is not where I need to be. Even though there's lots of good stuff on Reddit, there's lots of fun stuff on Reddit. For me, it was just like, no, this isn't good. But if we can make sure that we're in the right places that we're supposed to be, we're going to avoid a lot of the bad stuff. We're going to avoid a lot of the stuff that we click on and it ends up taking over our computer or taking over our phone and that sort of stuff. So really, again, it starts mentally analog with us as well. But there's, of course, things that you can do to make sure that your home is set up safely. One of the things that I recommend that people do is make sure that your personal Wi-Fi in your home is password protected, and that you change that password frequently so that you make sure that your nosy neighbors and that kind of stuff aren't getting on your network and doing illegal activity on your network. Because a buddy of mine in law enforcement told me that they were working on a case with child sexual abuse material, and they had followed this guy for 2 years. They knew what type of device they were looking for. They knew the IP addresses attached to it. They knew the physical address. They go and they knock down the door, and they start interviewing the guy. They wreck his house. They can't find the device. And after talking to him for like 2 hours, they realized this isn't the guy. And what happened was his neighbor was the guy with the device, and he had hacked the Wi-Fi and was sending sex abuse material across his network. And so they found the guy pretty quick, thankfully. But yeah, man, that story scared me. I was like, I need to make sure I'm the only person using that. Yeah, because it's a digital fingerprint back to where you are. So, that's basic stuff. Make sure that your Wi-Fi is locked down at your house.
That is nuts.
Yes. Scary.
So I didn't know that Wi-Fi password was hackable. I mean, I got like 30 characters.
Yeah, that's good. That's good that you have 30 characters, because the longer the password, the longer it is going to take to hack. So that you got 30 characters in there, that's good. Now, what happens is when hackers, or even if it's the kid next door who's bored, who has nothing else to do, maybe he got his Xbox taken away, so he's going to try to hack your stuff while he's on restriction from Xbox. So they set up a program and it just runs. It runs 24/7, and eventually they'll hit it. And the longer that password is, the longer it'll take them to hit, and the more likely they are just to let it go and forget it and move on, that sort of thing. So that's good. I'm glad that you got one that's long.
I use phrases.
Yes,
I'll pick a phrase.
Yes, man, a passphrase. It's really not a password anymore. Yeah, you're right.
It's a sentence, because when like relatives would come over and they'd be like, "Hey, can I get your password to your Wi-Fi?" It's like, damn, what the hell did I make it? So I was like, so I got to think of so I was like, from now on, it's going to be a phrase. So I know the phrase, and I know the characters I put at the end, and I'm good.
Right. There's a joke that goes, a guy walks into a bar and he asks for the Wi-Fi password, and the bartender says, you got to buy a drink first. So the guy buys a drink, says, okay, what's the Wi-Fi password? You got to buy a drink first. That's the password. So I was like, hey, that's clever. That's a good one.
pretty cool.
So do you recommend using the guest network? So you have a primary network and then you have a guest network, and you just give out the guest network password.
Yes, you can have a guest network that is truly set up for guests. Another thing, like with my router, I get 2 guest networks. One can be for guests. The other one, I actually put all of my wireless home security stuff on, like my wireless cameras and that sort of stuff. That way, if somebody does breach that network, they don't get a hold of the rest of the network or whatever else is on it. So you can use a guest network strictly for when your friends and family come over, like that's cool. But you can also use a guest network as a way to segregate certain devices from the rest of the network as well. And I always hide my network names. Like I'll tell you the one that I used to have. I love this one. I don't use it anymore. But the name of the network was unavailable. And so when people would look at it, I actually had a tech guy come over to my house one time, and he was like, "Hey, what's your network?" It's called unavailable. He's like, "That's brilliant." I was like, "Yeah, call it that. Call it error code. Call it whatever you want to. Don't put your name on it. Don't be like, hey, Sal's personal Wi-Fi. Don't do that, because then they can track who you are and whose Wi-Fi they're looking at, that sort of stuff. So just make it like generic stuff.
I mean, isn't that
if
common,
you really want to be,
isn't that common sense? Or I guess I feel like it is.
Yes, it is. It is common sense, but like, man, common sense is not common anymore.
Common sense is not a flower that blooms in every garden.
Because Andy, you know what else
there
I've seen is people put their address. Like
yes,
like I grew up on.
I've seen that too.
Like whatever. Like I'll give a fictitious place, but like say like 206 34th Street, and that would be the Wi-Fi password.
Yeah. It's just like, hey, you can hack my Wi-Fi, then you can show up at my front door, or know where to stand so you can get a better signal. That's and people, if you don't think like a criminal, like none of this stuff is really going to occur to you. That's why I encourage people to use the fancy term for that is adversarial mindset. Understand the adversarial mindset. Think like a bad guy. Think like a hacker. Think like somebody who would have to try to get access to your child online. And when you start seeing those things, you start thinking about it. As scary and uncomfortable as it may be, you'll start to see the criminal process. And there is a process. It's linear. So you've got to open yourself up to that. Don't fear it. Look at it. And when you see those things, you know how to better protect your family.
Makes sense.
So one of my neighbors is not a Tony Romo fan. So his network is Tony Romo sucks.
I like that.
I haven't figured out which neighbor it is. Rob knows my neighbors. They're either 101 years old or 85. So
okay, yeah, it's probably an Eagles fan. I don't know.
They're the worst. So what is the latest threats to our families?
The latest threat to your family. This one was interesting. There was a guy who met a child through an Oculus experience. Do you know what Oculus is? It's the goggles that you wear. And what was interesting about that, I think this was out of Florida, that their kid was communicating with this person and seeing all sorts of images and things they weren't supposed to. But because the kid was always wearing the goggles, no adult knew what was going on. And you wear the headphones. So like the family didn't know that they were being groomed by a predator because they couldn't see the material. They couldn't hear the conversation. So I think what a lot of times we have to do to counter those types of threats, the new threats, the ones that are always evolving, is have conversations with your kids about what they're doing online. Say, hey, did you play Roblox with somebody today? Did they have Minecraft? Talk to them about, ask them about their games that they're playing and all the platforms that they're using, because you'll start to understand what makes them feel comfortable online and what makes them feel uncomfortable online. And then when you start hitting on things where your kids, like their cheeks start getting red, they start getting nervous, that sort of thing, you realize, okay, there's something about this particular platform, there's something about this question I just asked that's going to make them feel uncomfortable. But you got to sit down, you got to talk to them, you got to be open about what they're seeing online. There's a couple of times that my son has come across something that he's been like, hey, what is this? And we sit down and we have an adult conversation about what it was. And we build that bond, because if something does go wrong online as a parent, you may not catch it. So you have to have that open door policy with your kid to come and talk to you when something scary does happen, when it's a threat, when it's a bullying, or somebody's trying to send them explicit material, that sort of thing, so that if something bad does happen, they come and they tell you about it and you work through it together as a team.
See, I'm not a gamer, so there's really no gaming devices in my house, and Rob knows that. He breaks my chops all the time.
That's good.
So and once my kids got their laptops, they would ask me, "Can we download this, download that?" And no. So I gave in to Roblox when it first came out. And the one day my daughter said, "Hey, someone reached out to me and wanted to know if I wanted to be their friend." I was like, "That's it, done."
Yeah.
Off. Deleted the app,
yes.
deleted the program. Nope, you are not
Right.
playing Roblox. So then,
Right.
so then Among Us came out, and everybody's raving about Among Us. I was like,
Yes.
nope. Finally, I gave in. So all three of my girls, they had Among Us on their computers, and that went fine. You know, they said that they would play with their friends, and I think just recently they realized I think they can chat
Right.
in the game. So that was okay.
Right. I think what we're finding out about online predators is really nothing new, because I think it is magnifying what has always been there in humanity. These threats have always existed. It's just a different avenue of getting to our kids. And we can't just chalk it up and say, "Oh, the software is going to catch it. These filters are going to catch it," and that's not the case, because it's always changing for the predator. It's always changing. So you really have to talk to your kids about it. You got to teach them to be good digital citizens, and level with them at what they're ready to know and what they're ready to understand. So and do the best that you can. Don't get frustrated and walk away and just say, "Oh, I can't figure it out." So Sal, man, good on you for talking to your kids and staying on them, because it's going to pay off in the long run.
Thanks. Yeah, it's I don't know as much as I should know about the internet and all the threats out there, but the little bit that I do know, it's scary. It is very scary.
Yeah.
What do you do to prohibit adult material from your network so your kids getting their hands on it?
Right. What you can do is, like, my son has a Gmail address for his school, and he has one personally that we set up together. And there is, and I'm going to figure this out real quick. I'll pull up the name. There's Parental Controls called Family Link for Google. It's an app that you can get. So when you create an account for a minor, you can go through and set up what permissions they have and what they can do, contacts they can have, and the things that they can view. I would just make sure that all your parental controls are turned on. You have parental controls on your router. What you need to do, if as they're all different. I can't really walk you through that right now, but you just take your router name, Google it, and then you also put in parental controls, and there will be a video online of somebody on YouTube that will walk you through how to do that, how to turn those sorts of things on. Another analog tip is to make sure your kids don't use their devices in their rooms, don't use it in the bathroom, that when they do have devices, that they are in a public area where you can see the screen and you can see what's going on. That will also help you out.
I fail at that. 100% failure at that one.
Well, I mean, that's okay. I mean, if you can trust your kids, that's good, and you can build that trust, because you don't want to crush them.
Right.
You know, you don't want your house to feel like a prison or a digital prison. So if you've got kids that you can trust and an age you can trust, that's good. But also, you kind of have to do that whole trust but verify thing. You know, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to. You give them areas that they can operate in, and then if they cross the line or something happens, you got to be ready to respond.
Is there a specific router that you suggest? Because me and Sal have had some bad experiences with a couple routers.
Sure, there is the Nighthawk series that I like a lot. It's run, and I want to say that it is by. Let me pull this
Netgear.
up. It's Netgear.
Yep.
Yeah, I like Netgear a lot, because they make things simple for like somebody like me to understand. You don't have to be an IT professional to do that. I have an app on my phone that I can take a look at the router. I can turn on parental controls from there. I can turn off. I can turn off devices. So like one of your kids has is gotten in trouble, and you say, okay, no Wi-Fi for you. You can actually turn it off right there from the app. So the one that I have is a couple of years old now. It's good. And you can have an old router. You just need to make sure that you're doing all of the updates for it, because there's security updates for them all the time. Because again, the IT security people, it's an ever changing battlefield for those guys, and so they have to come up with all this stuff to push to us. So make sure that you have your automatic updates on, no matter what kind of router that you have. But I think Netgear is good. Linksys makes good stuff. I would avoid the Chinese made stuff, um, just because like I had one, it just didn't seem to last. It just couldn't hold up. So if you're good with Netgear or Linksys, you're going to be fine.
Awesome. That makes a really good segue for the next question. So how should we protect our homes? Alarm, fire alarms, any other suggestions?
Yeah, all of that is great. I will tell you, most people, and I'll say this of me. You guys don't have to admit to this. Um, I used to lose sleep at night years ago because I didn't know what to do if somebody broke into my house. You know, excuse me. And so I had to wonder, you know, what would I do? How would that look? And I realized I was making a pretty big mistake, because I wasn't worried about home security until somebody decided to break in. And that's the middle of the situation. Like, that's the middle of the bad guy's plan. So I started to realize that in order to protect my home, I really had to make it look like an unappealing target for a criminal. You know, I had to make it look like, hey, this house is going to be pretty hard to break into. I'm going to move on. And before you think I'm going to suggest that put bars on the windows and get a moat with attack dogs, you can. That's no problem. But what it really means is one of the best things that you can buy for home security. You can get it on Amazon right now, and it is a dusk to dawn light bulb. And what you do is you put that on the front porch if you've got one, and you turn the switch on. You walk away, and so the light will turn on when it's dark, and it illuminates your whole front of your home, so that darkness is really the best friend of a thief, to not be seen. When you have that light, you turn it on, you take that power away, and if it comes down, this is kind of how it goes. Hey, this house has a porch light on, this one doesn't. I'm going to this house over here, and your house is left alone. And you help the burglar make that decision to leave you alone. And so that's kind of, you have to be proactive about home security.
I have actually 3 rings, spotlights on all around my house.
Yes.
So anybody who walks through,
very good.
It lights up. And what is
very
it?
Good. Yeah.
It also says you are now being recorded.
Yeah, his
Yes,
ring spotlights
like
they
it.
greet you.
Yeah.
He said, "Hello, you're now being recorded."
I like it, and I bet you don't have solicitors coming to your house either trying to sell you
The
stuff.
deer don't mind it, but people definitely do a second glance when that happens.
So you.
Oh yeah,
You
for
touched
sure.
on the outside of the house, which I actually had dusk till dawn, and they just recently burned out. The bulbs burned out, and I got to get new ones.
Good for you.
Now, as far as like interior alarm system, obviously that's common sense.
Yes.
Would you go another step further with firearms?
Sure, you can have a firearm in your home, and it will make your home safer if you know how to use it and you're properly trained. For everybody listening to this, if you have a gun in your home, good for you. Make sure it is out of the reach of your children, because that is not what you want. You do not want your kids getting hold of your firearm, even if they're just playing or they're showing it to a friend. You don't want that. So yeah, if you want to do a firearm, if you want to do, there's a shotgun, you could go with like an AR-15 style, or you can go with a pistol. It's really what you think you can use the best, and what is best for you. What is best for me may not be best for you. So you really need to take your time, go to your local gun store, rent a gun to use in their range, have fun, shoot it, see what you like, see what you don't like, talk to your friends, and try to just see what is going to work best for you and your family. something that you can manage, something that you can keep stored properly and used under pressure. So yeah, I support
We
that.
actually did a podcast on gun security and owning a
Good.
gun and how to be a responsible gun owner. And first and foremost
Good.
is if you have kids, lock it up.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, when I was growing up, my dad said never to touch my gun, and I never did, and I grew up that way. I was recently at a party this Christmas, and my son was playing upstairs with a group of friends, and nothing bad happened, but I realized that they were going into parts of the house that the homeowner had said don't go into, like the parents had said don't do that. Because when you get all those kids together, they start having fun. They start wanting to explore. Oh, let me show you this. Let me show you that. And then the next thing you know, your kids are somewhere you told them never to be. So you've got to make sure that they can't get a hold of anything. So good on you for having a show on that.
All right, so moving on to one topic I love and I go over with my kids is situational awareness. Can you define that and the importance of it?
Sure. Yeah. So situational awareness it's one term for a huge umbrella. I actually have gotten to know and study with Greg Williams, who's the guy who actually pinned that term, and he works for Arcadia Cognerati. And situational awareness is understanding your environment and what's going on in your environment. And so when you can do those things, you can see trouble before it starts. Believe it or not, there are actually 3 elements to every crime. And if you know what to look for, you can stop them from having them in your life. It's something called the crime triangle. You have to have somebody who has criminal intent, you have to have a target, and they have to have the opportunity to get to that target. So that's just 3 things right there. So if you can keep yourself from being targeted, you're never going to be the victim of a crime. If you can keep criminals from getting to you, then the crime triangle can't form and you're going to be okay. So if you can understand how criminals are looking for that target, how they're observing it, and how they're planning, you can stop violence from happening in your life. If you can understand the importance of, okay, maybe I'm sitting in a restaurant and there's a fire. Where's the nearest exit? I don't need to try to formulate a plan on how to get my family out of a restaurant in the event of a fire. I need to know where those emergency exits are when I sit down. And you kind of just mentally, real quick, you make a plan. Okay, if there's a fire in the kitchen, we are going out that door. That is not the door we came in, but that is the door that we are going to go out. A lot of people, when they panic, they're going to try to go the way they came. This, as human beings, that's what we do. We try to fall back to doing what we know. And so when you can make a plan, you're going to get out a whole lot faster because everybody else is going the wrong way. And so that's where, and while that may sound like paranoia to a lot of people who don't really understand this or prepare for it, it can sound strange, but it becomes a part of your life. I've been doing this for 20 something years now, and it just becomes a part of who you are. It doesn't seem abnormal. And in the event that you actually have to use it, it just clicks and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it. So, yeah, for sure. Try to understand what's going on around you, who's around you, because is that me talking? Somebody's talking to me. I don't know. So, like somebody in here's talking to me. I thought I was alone. I thought I had good situational awareness. But the other side of that is you are human. You're gonna mess up. And if something does happen and it's not that big of a deal, don't beat yourself up about it, because we only have so much attention in a day. And especially us as dads, you got 2 sons, you got 3 daughters. They're taking up so much of your attention when you're out in public that you really do have to develop what I call secure habits. And that is, I'm going to, if I'm sitting at a table like at McDonald's or whatever, I'm going to make sure that they're eating, they're okay. And then I'm going to make sure that we're talking, we're having fun. And then my third thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to watch what's going on around me to make sure that it doesn't look like there's a fight brewing between 2 people. Some guy standing outside of the door looking like he's doing a press check on a firearm, like he's going to come in and rob the place, that sort of stuff. And then I go right back to, okay, is everybody eating? Are we having a good time? And then we look back around again, that sort of stuff. And then somebody spilled their chocolate milk. You find out the ice cream machine's not working and your whole day shot. So, but that's McDonald's for you.
Head's always got to be on a swivel.
Yes. Yeah, and it does. And it doesn't have to lead to paranoia. If you just, there will be a phase when you start to learn situational awareness for real. That you, it's like the whole expression, I just got a hammer so everything looks like a nail. And you're going to want to try to find that threat in every environment. And there isn't. The majority of the places that you go, there's not going to be a life threatening situation. But there will be interesting things that you will start to notice about who's paying attention to what and what's going on. And you can kind of, like, I now have the ability to sit at a table and watch other people and figure out who's in charge, who's second in command, who's not happy to be here. Just by studying those nonverbal cues, you can kind of figure out all that kind of stuff. It's fun. It can be fun.
If you can impart a word of wisdom to our fathers, to our listening fathers, what would it be?
Be present in the moment. Be present in the moment, because you'll be present with your kids, you'll be present with your wife, and you'll be present to understand if there's any threat around you. Keep your face out of your phone.
So true.
That's good. I like that because a lot of people have said that. Thank you, Andy, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. This was awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Sal. I appreciate it. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting you, and hopefully we can do this again in the future.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I'm all for it.
That concludes another episode of the Rad Dads Podcast. Tune in next time for another amazing guest or just me and Sal bullshitting.